In this episode of the Ear Scouts podcast, we're talking about something that many people will tell you is the most intimidating thing for them about a trip to Walt Disney World. Of course, for other folks, it just comes naturally, and it's something that they love the most about a Disney trip. We're talking, of course, about characters. And in this episode, we're going to share with you where you can find these characters, how you can find the shortest waits to meet these characters, and most importantly, how you can make the most of your character interactions on your next trip to Disney. We got a lot of stuff to cover, so let's get to it. Hi ho, everybody. This is Rob with Ear Scouts coming to you from our makeshift studio here in Celebration, Florida. Joining me, as always, is the other half of Ear Scouts, Eric. Hi ho, Eric.
Hi ho, everyone.
Eric is going to be keeping up with the live chat over on Patreon, but also today, I think Eric has a lot of experience with characters, and so we're also going to be leaning a lot on Eric's expertise today as well. So, but if you'd like to join us live as we record each of these episodes and be part of the live chat when we record, just head on over to patreon.com/earscouts. That's also going to give you access to the Patreon exclusive after party, which we'll be doing later tonight after the show. Also with us is the host of Jessica Scraps on YouTube, our good friend Jessica. Hi ho, Jessica.
Hi ho, everyone. It's great in Connecticut today. It was flooding. So we had torrential downpours all day today, and the flood alarm kept going off. And I was wondering if I would be here, but now it is blue skies. So
very nice.
An interesting kind of day in Connecticut.
Well, I'm glad that the flooding has subsided and blue skies are there. We've had actually a lot of rain today as well, but it's Orlando and we're kind of used to that. So it's just kind of what happens every day in the summer in Orlando. But today we're going to be talking a lot about characters. And before we start this conversation, I just want to say at the outset, we have a lot of little Ear Scouts who listen to this show with their families. And for them, meeting characters is a big part of the magic of their Disney trip. And so as we discuss this topic, we're going to preserve that magic. And sometimes in the show, we like to take a peek behind the curtain. And for this particular topic, we're going to keep the curtain closed. I will say for me, when I was talking at the beginning of the show about how sometimes people can be intimidated by meeting characters, that was me. The first time I came to Disney World, it was by far the one thing that I felt the most awkward doing. Like I didn't have, it wasn't something that we did a lot when I was a kid. When we came to the parks, we were more focused on rides and shows and eating. So I didn't really have that frame of reference, and I would kind of freeze up and I would not know what to say. And it was a stressful thing for me, but something magical happened from just living here as long as I have now and being in the parks as much as I have. I've completely changed my feeling about character interactions in the parks, and I love the interactions that I've had with characters, and it really does deepen your relationship to these characters that you know from movies and TV. One story I often tell, it wasn't that I disliked Daisy Duck, but she wasn't really particularly one of my favorite characters. It wasn't like one I would say, when someone said list off your favorites, but I've had so many amazing interactions with Daisy in particular, just at different character dining meals and things that I love Daisy Duck now. Like I love when I see Daisy in the parks. I'm like, hey, Daisy, and that's just something, if you open yourself up to that experience and you do some of the things that we're going to share in today's episode, even if you're not comfortable like I was, I hope that it'll become one of your favorite things in the parks as well. Jessica, I'm going to toss to you. Tell us a little bit about your background, your experience with characters.
Yeah, I think I started going to the parks, when I was a little kid, but now when as I was older, I started going to parks taking my little kids. And so we would go to characters that they wanted to see. And it was really as a mother watching her children interact with characters. And I will be honest and say I never interacted with the characters. I was always let the characters interact with my kids, and it was magical and it was an amazing moment. And I have some pictures of my kids with characters and their autographs from when they were younger. I mean, we're talking 5, 7, 8, that age range. And then when they became teenagers and we went back, we probably didn't see characters. And I think when I first came back as an adult by myself, I also didn't go see characters. And I will tell you, it was Halloween. It was a Halloween party because I really wanted to see the costumes. I wanted to see the characters in the costumes. And my first Halloween party back as an adult that I started going to see the characters, John and I, as adults. It was just this interaction we had. Like you were talking to Daisy and Donald and you're having this great conversation and they made the party come to life. And I realized that I was missing a fundamental part of the parks by being close to this experience that kind of brought magic into the parks for me. And ever since that time, I've been really focused on how do I, bring the characters into my park days and see them. But it is something that you have to have just that right, that right interaction. And I'll say for me, I enjoy talking to Daisy and to Mickey and to Goofy and Judy and Nick and Chip and Dale. Talking to the princesses gives me a little bit more anxiety because I'm not sure sometimes in holding that conversation. And we'll talk about some of the tips and tricks for that later, I think. But start with one of the characters, and I think you might find you'll see some magic open up for you.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I've talked to some people. For me, I'm the same way. I feel much more comfortable with, um,
For
you know,
characters.
yeah, the term is fur characters, but the characters like, Mickey and Donald. And these characters typically in their interactions, it's almost like a game of charades, right? They
Mm-hmm.
they do their part of the conversation is miming. And I find that to be a lot more comfortable. Having said that, I've talked to other folks who watch the channel and they're like, it's funny you say that, Rob, because for me, it's the exact opposite. I I feel much more comfortable that I'm able to have, a verbal conversation and I'm not trying to sort of figure out what the character's trying to tell me. And that's just what puts me at ease. So I think it is different for everyone, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you, Jessica. I think for me, I've always been more comfortable with those characters rather than the princesses. Eric, you see folks interacting with characters a lot because you're in Magic Kingdom a lot. Um, what are some of the things that the more you've seen, some of the things that maybe surprised you about characters, or maybe how your feelings about working with characters has changed?
The first time that we came to visit, I was like the same way that Rob. He, it kind of made me anxious, just like to try to meet like a character at that age, like so. It was kind of I felt awkward about it, uh, but the more you allow yourself to have fun, like it becomes easier. And now that I see it from a different perspective, something that doesn't stop surprising me is just like the magic and love that guests like give to the characters as well. A You see them in all shapes, in all like ages, in all stages in life. You will see like that sparkle of happiness in their eyes, and love. And for some people, it's a dream. Like probably it took 50 years, probably took like 80 years to be in the parks for the first time, and being able to experience like that magic. It's just it makes me appreciate to be with those characters more and more.
Yeah. And that's the thing. This is a part of the Disney experience that has been there from day one. from the first opening day of Disneyland, when you watch, that black and white footage that was broadcast live on television, the characters were everywhere. I mean, it was such an integral part of the experience. And it's one of the things, it really, there aren't that many things that have not changed about the Disney experience. That's one of them. I mean, characters have been there consistently. And, I think that speaks to the importance of having those moments with the characters in the parks. I do think it's a magical thing that if you open yourself up to it, it's going to really enhance your experience at the parks, on the cruises, and we're going to talk about all that. We're not just talking about parks today. We're also going to talk about events and cruises. So let's go ahead and start with tips for meeting characters. So let's start with, where do you find the characters? If you're coming to the parks, what is the easiest way to know where you can meet characters and when you can meet those characters? Jessica, what's the easiest way for people to do that?
So the easiest way is to go to the My Disney Experience app. So I did a little screen grab, and we're going to see if it works. So hopefully you guys are seeing this. But if you go to the map or the geotag option, and you go to the top and you look at characters, you're going to notice that little Mickey heads appear all over the map. If you click on them, it will show you where they are and what time they meet. If you say find on map, it's going to go directly to that and show you find on map. You can also do a show list, and it's going to give you the list of every character. And then you can do that one, show on map, and it'll take you to where that character is. There is also an opportunity, if your character has an actual wait time queue, like Mickey Mouse, that under wait times, you may see them. But under wait times, you will not see the full set of characters because you're only going to see those characters that have dedicated physical queues. So the best thing you can do is hit the character icon and then look at the list. And that will kind of give you a feel. The list will also, when you click on it, you'll notice it showed you the times they were appearing. That's very important too.
So that's in the My Disney Experience app for Disney World. It works essentially the same way in the Disneyland app for Disneyland. I do think this would be a good moment to talk about the different kinds of character interactions that happen in the parks. Jessica, you were talking about there are different kinds of character meet and greets. There's the ones that are going to show up in wait times because they have a formal queue with a posted wait time. But there's other kinds of character meet and greets as well that some of them will still have a queue, but it won't be like a structured queue. There won't be like an archway that you'll go through with a sign at the top that says this is how many minutes it's going to be to meet this character. Um, but they do still have a line. They just happen to be, in a less formal meeting spot. A good example of this would be in the Magic Kingdom. If you're in Adventureland, right there near where the magic carpets of Aladdin are spinning around, you will see sometimes Jasmine or Aladdin meeting over there. They're going to have a line. It'll be just like the line you would wait in to meet Mickey, but because it's a less formalized space, there won't be a posted wait time. But then there's a third kind of character meet and greet that it's really not truly a meet and greet, that they called walk around characters. And essentially this is just when a character is roaming the parks. Roaming characters is another term that people use for these. And so when you encounter a roaming character, uh, the roaming characters will avoid having a line. That's not the purpose of a roaming character, to sort of be in one spot and have a line of people waiting to meet them. And if a line sort of starts to form, oftentimes what will happen is that roaming character will just move on, right? We'll just keep moving because they just have they have a different plan for their day, right? They're gonna walk around the land and meet as many people as they can and have little magical moments, but it's less of like I'm gonna stay in this one spot and get photos. This is the one that I think is probably the trickiest to navigate as a guest, because With a line, you stand, you wait until it's your turn, and then you have the interaction that's going to be the same as the people that were in line in front of you. You kind of know what to expect. With these walk around or roaming characters, um, my suggestion, I want to ask each of you what your thoughts are on this, because it's a little bit more. The most important thing is you want to be respectful of the other people who are there and the character. But having said that, if you don't take a turn, right, to have an interaction with that character, there's not going to, because there's not a line, it's not just going to formally come to you to take a turn. So you do kind of have to look for that break, that moment when the character is not having an active interaction, and kind of maybe ask for a photo or whatever it is. If you have your autograph book that you've got, maybe present it. Sometimes they can't sign autographs though, just so you know.
Mm-mm.
Jessica, what are your tips for when you're encountering a roaming character versus a line character?
Well, and I think Diana just said it in the Patreon, but I kind of feel like as an adult, the roaming characters are more for the kids to have these magical moments. I tend to avoid interrupting the roaming characters if they've got kids around them, and I stand back and just experience it.
So I'm gonna toss to Eric, but before I do, I just want to say I think that is true of certain characters that are very much kid favorites.
Hmm.
There are some other characters, though, like I'm thinking the Country Bears, right? Which I tend to see more adults interacting
Oh,
with the
that's
Country
true.
Bears in Frontierland than I do kids. And so I always, if I'm walking by and Big Al is hanging out, or Romeo, as he is now known, is hanging out
Hmm.
and doesn't have an active interaction, I always will have a
Yeah.
moment with those characters. So I think again, it's that thing I said at the beginning about being respectful of the people who are there and the character. It's kind of like read the room.
Hmm.
But Eric, what are your thoughts on, what are your suggestions for people who are encountering roaming characters and some tips for them?
One of the things that I will say just that first, don't please don't chase them. People try to chase them, and again, you never know, like maybe Stitch is on a mission, is trying to go and meet with Lilo because like one of the cousins is just lost or is causing trouble. So again, they might be busy, they might be just
Hmm.
wandering around. Maybe Peter Pan and Wendy are looking for Tinkerbell because they want to go back to Neverland. So again, just you never know what their adventure is right now. So just don't chase them.
Yeah. And I do want to talk a little bit about the interactions that you're going to have with characters. So, getting something signed is a very popular thing. A lot of kids will have an autograph book. I've also seen people do really cool things, like where maybe they'll have um, a mat for a frame that they're going to frame one or more of their character photos, and they'll have the characters sign the mat, so that they have something to hang on the wall. But as Eric said, different characters have, different abilities to take time, in that moment to do something like that. Not all characters can. Here's the thing though, it's never problematic to ask. Just be
Mhm.
respectful if the answer may be no. Um, and I've made the mistake of assuming in certain situations that you couldn't get a character autograph. And then I saw that, oh, actually, it did happen there. So it never hurts to ask. Um, I do want to ask our friends on Patreon to share their suggestions about interacting with roaming characters. And while we're waiting for that to come in, I do want to also talk about photos with characters, because when you have a structured line with a posted wait time, you can pretty much guarantee there's going to be a PhotoPass photographer or some sort of device that's there to take your photo at the end of that line. Then for the characters that have informal lines, I guess you would say, the ones that are not in a, like we talked about, Jasmine and Aladdin earlier, they may or may not have a PhotoPass photographer present. However, in those cases, you can oftentimes ask if the character attendant is the term that Disney uses, but the character will often have a friend with them. Um, and they are usually happy to take a picture with your phone. Not always, though. It depends on what, certain friends of characters have a lot of stuff that they have to keep up with, just to, as Eric said, to keep up with the mission at hand.
Mhm.
But usually you can get them to take a picture with your phone. PhotoPass photographers are always happy to take a photo with your phone if you'd like. But I would recommend even if you're not sure you're going to do Memory Maker, get the Memory Maker photos taken, because you never know when you're going to get just the most incredible shot that makes the whole Memory Maker package worth it. And then if you do get that shot, man, wouldn't it be a bummer if you could have gotten all these other photos that you missed out on, even though you met the characters.
You talked a
Uh,
little bit about the devices. I think it is important to talk about that just a little bit. Is that some of the characters, I'm thinking Mickey and in the Main Street Theater. I'm thinking Mickey and Minnie in Animal Kingdom. Stitch for the Visa pass holder in Disney Hollywood Studios have the boxes that take the photos as opposed to an actual photographer.
mhm,
Those have some of the best pictures we've ever taken and some of the worst pictures we've ever had taken. So I really recommend you give your phone to the attendant of the
mhm,
also in those situations,
yeah,
or at least get a selfie. Um, those boxes are better than nothing, but please, please, please don't miss out on getting that picture with Stitch or Mickey and Minnie. And it just blows my mind because Mickey and Minnie together at Animal Kingdom is the only consistent place you can see Mickey and Minnie together. They should have a real photographer, but they don't.
yeah,
So please give your phone to somebody and get that. I just want to put that out there. Those boxes are better than nothing, but that's not saying much.
yeah.
So
And then the last thing I want to talk about with photos with the roaming characters, there will pretty much never be a PhotoPass photographer going around with the roaming characters. In those situations, what most people do, parents will get photos of their kids interacting, or you could do a selfie. That's a great moment for a selfie. In fact, I oftentimes see people watching parades, and when their favorite character passes by, they just turn around, and you can't count on the fact that the character is going to be able to have a quick selfie moment with you, but sometimes a little magic happens. So selfies are always kind of a good option for roaming or even parade characters. So the things that we just talked about were the different ways that you're going to encounter characters in the parks. Um, Before we get into the nitty gritty of tips about wait times and all that sort of stuff, I do want to touch on the other places that you can encounter characters. So a big one is Disney Cruise Line. And on Disney Cruise Line, there will be moments where characters are roaming just like in the parks. But what is more common will be structured character meet and greets, with lines like you see in the parks, and you'll find those in your app, your cruise navigator app. I think it's really important to know, however, that for those posted times, you really want to arrive a little bit early, a little bit ahead of when that character is going to show up, because with the parks, you can oftentimes just sort of show up in the middle of that posted time for characters that are, like Jasmine and Aladdin, the ones that don't have the formal queue set up. But on the cruise, there's just so many people who want to get that same photo that they will oftentimes cut the line, sometimes before the character has even started to meet, if it's a really popular meet and greet. But usually, like shortly after the character meet and greet begins, the line will get so long that it gets cut. Same thing happens in the parks, though. It's important to know it's not like a ride where with a ride you can get in line right before the park is going to close and you'll be able to stay in that line until you ride the ride. with characters, they will cut off the line as soon as they think they've reached the point where that character interaction is going to end for that time. So don't wait too long. And I would say, Eric, what would you say? Like 5 or 10 minutes before a character interaction is going to complete? 10 minutes is probably safe.
I would say like I used to play like save at least 10 minutes before the set finishes.
Yeah. So if it says in the app they're there from 1 to 2 p.m., you want to make sure that you're there at least by, 1:50. But if it's a special character, if it's a really unique experience, like for example, during the holidays when there are limited time characters, if you're going to be meeting Santa or the Easter Bunny, for example, you don't want to cut it that close. You want a lot more time than that. So, but for character interactions that happen every single day, that are, you can usually about 10 minutes before in the parks. Jessica, another place that you met some characters was at a Run Disney event. Why don't you talk a little bit about Run Disney?
Yeah, so I do want to bring up Run Disney, and I think it's good to talk about the fact that at Run Disney there are two types of character meet and greets. The first of which is the one that I did, and look, I have a photo. It's very exciting. Before the race,
Is that nighttime or is that
that is
really
at like
crazy early in the morning?
4 o'clock in the morning, right there. That is us at 4 o'clock in the morning. It's very exciting. Um, but they usually have themed characters to whatever race you're doing. We were doing the duos, fantastic duos. We happened to be the Nick and Judy race, but so they had Wreck-It Ralph and Vanellope. But they had the duos out, and before the race, so starting at 3 o'clock in the morning, you can start meeting some of the characters in the area before the race, before you go to your corral. And they have a set of characters there. Those characters are also typically there after you finish the race. So you can meet them there. That's one type of characters. The second type of character is those characters in the race itself. And I will say the more coveted, the more unique characters are the characters that they put throughout the race. So one of the things that people talk about with Run Disney events is most people aren't trying to PR. Most people aren't trying to get their personal best race times because they put so much extra into these races. One of those things being characters. So as you are running or walking through the course, there will be stations set up with characters that you can then stand in the line and meet. Sometimes they're 15 minutes, sometimes they're much longer than that. And you stand in the line, you meet the character, and then you continue with your race. If you're in one of the first corrals, that is a very, very good way to meet characters. If, like John and I, and you were running your very first Run Disney event, and you were in Corral F at the very back of the pack, that extra time may not be enough, may be too much for you to finish the race. So you just have to play that by ear and kind of judge your time management. You can always choose characters over completion. You still get a medal, I'm told. You don't get to count it towards a challenge, but you still get a medal. But you can choose characters over completion. But just understand that that time you're meeting characters does count towards the total time it took you to finish the race.
So another place that you can encounter characters is at resorts. And so this is not just resorts that are at Walt Disney World and Disneyland. When you go to, for example, the Vero Beach Resort or the Hilton Head Resort, the DVC resorts that are around, you can also encounter characters there. Resorts are tricky though. These other things that we're talking about, you kind of are going to know when and where you're going to encounter the characters, either through using the app or just knowing how things flow. Resorts are very kind of random. You can always ask at the front desk. Sometimes they will have specific information for that day. They will know characters will likely be here from this time to this time, but in many cases they will not. It's kind of just a surprise and delight moment that happens. Um, in many cases, the characters here at Walt Disney World, they just kind of roam around from resort to resort. They just will show up when they show up, and after they've had some interactions, they'll move on. Jessica, did you want to add something about the resorts?
I will just say that the good thing about Cool Kids Summer for the last couple of years is that at some of the resorts, not all, but some, they've actually posted times for character meet and greets. At the resorts, that was something they added for Cool Kids Summers, but this does not exist for the rest of the year. So that is a
Yeah.
very specific Cool Kids Summer thing. It was an addition that you will know if your resort is having characters that day, and they will have times in the lobby. I think that is a really good benefit of Cool Kids Summer. So I just wanted to add that that's the one time I've ever seen where it's not a random act of excitement.
Yeah. The other all year round way that you can definitely meet a character at your resort is if your resort has character dining. And we're going to talk a lot about character dining a little bit later in the show, but I did want to throw that out there. You know, if you are staying at a resort and you really want to have like some dedicated time that you can plan in your schedule at the resort to meet characters, character dining is probably the best way to do that. Eric, did you have something you wanted to add about the resort meet and
Yeah,
greets?
I just wanted to say that sometimes also they come with a photo pass photographer. So just
Mhm.
be ready. Again, if you have your particular magic band ready, you can scan it, or if not, the photo pass photographer may give you a card, and you can view the photos.
I've had some really great interactions with
Mhm.
characters at resorts because usually it's usually one of those things where I just get so you get surprised by them, right? You're
Mhm.
coming out of your room and you're coming out into like the main walkway area and oh my gosh, there's Donald Duck like right there. It's usually just kind of a surprise moment, but it's a really one of those magical things that happens when you stay at a Disney resort. Um, another moving on to some other places where you will encounter characters um, at after hours events, at parties, things like Not So Scary, Jollywood, Very Merry, even extended evening hours and after hours paid after hours events. Characters can be a very big part of those. In fact, for some folks, characters are the main reason that they go to those. And so, we're going to talk a little bit later in the show about specific strategies related to parties, but just know the things that we've been talking about encountering characters in the parks. It's a little bit different in the parties. The lines are going to be way longer. That get in line 10 minutes before they go away, that's not going to cut it at a party. Those lines are going to be really long. In many cases, you probably want to be the first in line, if you know, among the first in line when the character arrives, if you can, just because those lines get crazy long, crazy fast. And the last thing I do want to talk about is a place you might encounter characters. And this is a place, it surprised me the first time I saw it. It would not have occurred to me, but you will sometimes encounter characters at the water parks. Specifically at Typhoon Lagoon, Stitch is often there. Not always, you can't count on it. Um, but I would say be on the lookout if you're at Typhoon Lagoon, Blizzard Beach, the water parks, that you might encounter them there as well. There are there are some special meet and greets that are only available to people who are either Disney Visa card holders or DVC members, in some cases annual pass holders. They'll have an annual pass holder lounge in Epcot for part of the year,
Yeah,
and you can also find characters in those locations. The benefits of those is usually they're oftentimes they'll be wearing something special, like a unique outfit you can only see when you meet them there. And sometimes the lines will be significantly shorter. Not always, though. It just depends on the time and the meet and greet and which one it is. But the Disney Visa one tends to be a relatively short wait every time I've gone. One other thing I did remember that we wanted to talk about. So we've talked about how you can see these characters in the app. We talked about how there's going to be some roaming characters. One thing we did not talk about, there are sometimes just some surprise characters in the parks. Each of the different parks has a location where you're likely to see these surprise characters show up. So let's really quickly go through the different parks and talk about where people might find some surprises. Eric, why don't you start us off with Magic Kingdom? Where might someone find some surprise characters in Magic Kingdom?
just in a regular day, sometimes in by the Times Square Theater porch, which is basically the first building on the right hand side. There are some designated characters that will meet there, but every now and then someone new just shows up over there. The magic happens during like special events like Father's Day or Easter. Sometimes, like by the gazebo, like you will be able to encounter like special characters in the gazebo by the old Christmas shop.
Mhm.
You're going to be able to find like special characters. Sometimes they also like to meet by the entrance of what it used to be a stage Great Escape.
Mhm.
But again, like
In
our
Tomorrowland.
yes, in Tomorrowland are sometimes like on that stage show by Tomorrowland. Again, if there is an event like also like 4th of July, like maybe some character might come out, especially like if they are having like a dance party or something like that, something going on like that. Someone may be able to come out.
All right. And then I've seen just during, not during a party or anything, but in the late afternoon, early evening, sometimes I've seen princesses
Mhm.
just roaming around the carousel behind the castle. I feel like that's another spot you sometimes see unannounced characters.
And
Um,
I'm missing actually another one. This is like more rare. Um, of a location to be able to see like a random character, but sometimes Mary Poppins and Mr. Penguin, uh, they show like on Main Street. We um, we call it Middle Street, which is between the Uptown Jewelers and Crystal Arts. Like at that
mhm.
level, again, it's been really really rare,
It's
but
that little street where you can get your silhouette
yes,
done, right? Yeah.
yes,
Mhm.
it's very rare, but like every now and then, like someone shows up over there.
Yeah. Um, what about at Epcot, Jessica? Where are some places people might find some unannounced special characters?
Yeah, so at Epcot and if you're looking at the American Adventure and you're looking to the left, there's a little gate by the side of the American Adventure, the beside Regal Eagle Barbecue. There's a gate, and sometimes unique characters just come out of that gate, or surprise characters just come out of that gate to meet. It's the most magical thing you'll ever see. We've had Chip and Dale a couple times. They just come out of that gate, and you can see them. Also, between the UK and Canada, you may see some characters over there. There's another gate. It's like these magical portals into another world. These like, characters, they just appear out of these gates. And then finally, on the way from Beach Club Boardwalk, that international gateway, sometimes characters that are not in the app may appear there. Um, what I have found at Epcot, particularly over there by the American Pavilion, before Halloween, some villains might start deciding to test out their conversations with people over there next to the American Adventure. So if you have some villains that you really might want to meet before Halloween, before a party, I have found that sometimes they test out their conversations over there at Epcot. So I think that's a really interesting place to go see characters, and some pretty unique characters sometimes over there at Epcot.
So, moving on to Hollywood studios, some places that you might find characters. The first spot you might encounter them is right as you enter. If you look to your left, you're going to see this kind of looks like a house, and it's Sid Cahuenga's. It's really where you go to get PhotoPass, to get your memory maker added, or any questions you have about PhotoPass. That's Sid Cahuenga's is where you go for that. But right outside of Sid Cahuenga's, there's like a gate, and characters sometimes will come out of that gate and hang out in that area a little bit. Another place that you might find characters in Hollywood studios is in front of the Chinese theater in the big kind of open space there. Sometimes characters will make special appearances there as well. So, what about Animal Kingdom? Eric, where can we find some unique characters in Animal Kingdom?
In Animal Kingdom, like as you enter like the park in the Oasis area, on the right hand side, like also by the store and the PhotoPass sales and service center, uh, Sometimes you're going to be able to see Daisy and Donald, like those are common characters that you will be able to meet there. But randomly, I have also seen King Louis. I have seen Rafiki, like just showing up out of nowhere. Another place where you can encounter them as well, randomly. It can be by the Tree of Life trails, where the is like it's going to be in the trail nearby the Starbucks, like on that side of the Starbucks. Sometimes, especially during Earth Day, you might be able to encounter like Koda and Kenai. Sometimes I have seen like Mantis and the Moth from A Bug's Life. Also, like even, we have even encountered again the pilot from DuckTales.
Launchpad McQuack.
Launchpad McQuack. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So again, you never know who might pop out over there. So just keep an eye open. Hopefully, you're going to encounter a rare character over there.
So let's talk a little bit about wait times. So we've decided we want to meet a character. One of the best times to meet characters to get the shortest waits. And I'm going to start off with the easy, low-hanging fruit, and that is if it is a character with a posted wait time, almost always your best moment is going to be right when that line first opens for the day. Folks are typically focused on rides first thing in the morning. They're not as focused on characters, so that can be a great opportunity to get a short wait. But there are other opportunities as well. Jessica, what's another one that you think is a good time to find a shorter wait?
So this is hit and miss, and this is one of our, things you need to be aware of. But if there's a character during the Festival of Fantasy parade that is not appearing, does not have a separate mission to be in the parade, they may still have a meet and greet that is a short line. It just depends on if they have to be in the parade, they can't be out roaming around. Now, it is possible that there is a way to see them in a line while there's a parade, or sometimes Mickey will have during the fireworks, Mickey's fireworks. Mickey will be a short wait. So I know we've talked about it. My strategy for parties is the same sometimes as my strategy for the day. I will watch Starlight go meet Mickey Mouse, come out and watch fireworks. So that to me is a really nice way to meet that character, but it has to be a character that has an indoor wait that's at night. So mine is a very specific kind of time, but if you want to meet a character, this applies to Jack and Sally as well at the Not So Scary or at the Christmas party. Um, I will just say that for fireworks, particularly at Magic Kingdom, any of the characters that are back there in Fantasyland have to go inside for fireworks because of the fireworks. So you can't meet Winnie the Pooh during fireworks. I will just preemptively tell people this in case they were wondering. You can't do
Yeah.
it. So.
I'm actually, this is a good moment to share. Matthew, one of our Patreon family members, he actually wasn't going to be able to join us, but he sent this in advance because he heard we were talking about characters. His favorite tip, if you're at the Halloween party, he loves to get in line for Jack and Sally at the parade start time while everyone is lining up for the parade on Main Street. They usually find that is a really short wait for Jack and Sally. Jack and Sally typically is the longest wait of any of the characters at the Not So Scary Halloween party. But there are definitely moments when they have dips in that wait time, and that's a good one. Another way that you can guarantee a short wait to meet characters, it's pricey, but it is to book a character dining experience. And in those situations, the characters are all going to come to your table. And you basically are going to meet all of the characters that are at that establishment during the course of your meal. So you're not really taking time out of your day to meet characters. And it used to be that you could meet characters using lightning lanes back in the days of Genie Plus. I think FastPass, you could meet with FastPass as well, correct?
Mhm.
In the FastPass
Mhm.
days. So if you're used to that, do know that's no longer the case. Now there are no lightning lanes to meet characters. The only way you can get that reduced weight is, to either do a character dining meal or to just go at the right time, like we were talking about, right when the meet and greet opens, or just get lucky when there's a parade happening or fireworks or something and the line goes down. You might be able to get a short wait then. Um, we did a whole episode on character dining. So we're not going to go super deep into character dining, but a lot of the tips that we're going to share for having good character interactions would apply the same to character dining. Before we get into our tips and suggestions for having really great character interactions, there is one last thing I want to talk about that is a distinction between meeting characters at Disneyland versus meeting characters at Disney World, because there are some differences. Um, Probably the biggest difference is there's just a ton of characters at Disneyland, so many more than you're going to find at Disney World. If you're trying to pick between the two and characters is a big part of your plan, it ain't close. Disneyland is the park to go to. Having said that, many of those character interactions at Disneyland are going to be informal, roaming characters. There's not going to be there's still a lot of traditional character meet and greets, but I think what gives Disneyland the volume of characters is they have so many characters that roam around the park. Um, Jessica, what are some things you think are different about the Disneyland experience versus Disney World?
I think so. I will just echo a little bit of what you said. I mean, one of the big draws for me to go to Disneyland when I did was it was at the time a place I could meet Nick and Judy, right? They were there, even though there's nothing in the parks that had Nick and Judy. There was a Nick and Judy meet and greet at Disneyland when there was nothing at Disney World. But I will say, because a lot of their characters are roaming, what we found is the lines for the characters that weren't roaming were always long.
Mm-hmm.
So Nick and Judy was a great example. You lined up and you expected a 30-minute wait. Um, Baymax is another one. And, Baymax, you probably had to go through 2 iterations of Baymax taking a break to recharge. Uh, any of them that actually had a meet and greet, Steamboat Willie is one where you wait in a real long line. And this is not at a party. This is not at a special event. This is not at a particularly crowded day. The ones that have lines at Disneyland, the lines are long. They have a lot more roaming, but the ones that have lines can get pretty long. So that's one of the things, but they're so unique. That Steamboat Willie picture, it's amazing. I will also say, and Eric might have a different opinion on this, their photo pass photographers did not seem as prevalent. So even in the ones that had lines, we didn't see as many photo pass photographers. It was a lot more taking your own pictures. So just doesn't seem they had as many as we do here. And I didn't see a single one of the boxes. So there. So it was a little different experience in that.
Yeah. And if you are going to any of the international parks, Disneyland Paris, especially Tokyo, those character lines are crazy long. I mean, really, as long as, if not longer than the ones in Disneyland. And then sometimes you have to actually reserve a spot in line. You can't just get in line, or in some cases, you just have to be in that line way earlier than you would think because they will close that line off. Just they get so long so quickly. So if you're doing international parks and characters are important to you, get there early and plan for a long wait.
I was going to just add to the international parks also, like, to do your research about like how they do the interactions, just because you will be surprised
Yep.
that they might give you just a chance to take the photo with your camera, or for you to be in the photo. So
Yep.
yeah.
That was a big surprise. We were at Tokyo Disney. Eric came in and took a picture of Duffy with his camera, like as he was approaching, and then went to get his picture taken with Duffy. And they said, no, you took your picture. You took a picture next.
It was either
basically.
or.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a big shock because that's not how it works at Disney World. You can take a picture of the character and have a picture with the character. But yeah. So do kind of just once you have your first character interaction in another country, you're going to learn the etiquette really quickly. But just know it's a little bit different than it is in the States. So the next thing I want to talk about is once you're having this interaction, we talked about where you can find the characters, where you can find the shortest waits, the different kinds of character meet and greets. But once you're there, once you're having a character interaction, what are some tips that'll make sure that you have a good experience? And I want to start us off with something I actually learned from Eric, because as I said at the top of the show, I used to be very anxious. The other thing is, much like Jessica said, whenever I was having a character interaction, I was like, I don't want to take up too much time. This character is really here to have time with the kids. I just want to, be as quick as I possibly can be and be on my way. And Eric was the one who said to me, Rob, you're making this really awkward for the character because the character is there to have a moment with you. That's like their whole like reason for being there is to have this moment with you. And so when you work against that, when you just try to rush things or you just try to like, okay, I'm gonna get a picture and bye-bye, you're kind of uh you're interrupting the normal flow of things. And you're going to find that if you, instead of overthinking it, instead of like trying to be, even if you're trying to be courteous, the most courteous thing you can do is to let the character guide that interaction. And if the character is giving you, a sense that, that it is a quick moment and, that maybe it is a quick moment, but usually that character wants to have a moment with you. And when you short circuit that, it's kind of awkward for everyone. And once I learned to stop trying to short circuit the interaction, once I learned to just go with the flow, really, to just let the character, you know, start a conversation with me and just go along with it, I had such better character interactions. I had more fun with it. And most importantly, I felt like the character was having, a better interaction as well. So it's really, I think my biggest tip is if you're new to character interactions, just go with the flow. Really just relax and let the character do the work because they do this 1,000 times a day and they have it down to an art. I mean, they know how to have a great interaction if you'll just let them have it. So that's my first tip. And it really was the biggest thing for me that made character interactions better. So thank you, Eric, for helping me to see a better way of doing it. Jessica, what's your first tip for folks doing a character interaction?
Well, I'm going to bring up a question we got from Patreon back a while ago from Rachel Russell. And she asked, I would love some pointers on characters, meet and greets. And that's really the impetus for this whole show. So thank you, Rachel. Mm-hmm. But her specific question is, what do I say to Darth Vader? What do I say to Darth Vader? And I think in the big scheme of the question, I think the answer is, one of my big tips is talk about them. Talk about how you know them, the movies that they're in, the shows that they're in. I would ask Vader how he feels about the new plans for the Death Star. How does he think how does he think it's coming with the new construction? Does he feel like he's been able to get all the rebels he needed? I would just have a real conversation with him about that, and and just say, I'm in leadership. I really struggle with some of my subordinates. Do you have any tips for that? And just have some fun interactions with the characters that you're doing. And that's just one example, but you know John talks to Tiana about her gumbo, or we talked to Rapunzel about hair products. How are you doing with your hair? Oh my gosh, it's so long. Those kinds of things, and you'll riff. But if you don't have if you've seen their movies and you can talk about that, I think that's usually a great kind of way to have a conversation. Talk about their world. And that's one of the things I like to remind people is Disney has all these stories and all these imaginations. Put yourself in that story and think about what would you have wanted to know if you were in that story and you were talking to them in real life. What are the things you would want to know? How hard was it to finally have legs? Was that a big adjustment? If you're talking to Ariel, those kinds of things. I mean, these are real questions that you want to know the answer to, and they really will. You'll find some of those give you some really fun back and forth.
Yeah.
Ask her how you can differentiate from a dingle hopper and a fork.
That's a great
Yeah.
Yeah.
question.
Mm-hmm.
That is a great question.
I will say specifically to that question about Darth Vader, you don't typically have to worry about what you're going to say to Darth Vader because he usually begins the conversations. I
Yes.
find
I was
Very
going to
Darth
say
true.
that. Yeah.
Darth Vader is one of those characters. He will start talking probably before you have a chance to say anything. So I always find myself reacting to Lord Vader. And that's his preferred Lord Vader, just so you know. It's
Yes.
preferred.
I am not like into a bit. Well, I have not watched all the Star Wars movies, so I don't really know like a lot of like the universe of Star Wars. But I remember when we went to meet Darth Vader in Anaheim and in Disneyland, and of course, like I know about the dark side, and he's asking you to join to the dark side, So like that's how he started the conversation, and I just went with, I'm so sorry, that's a lot of a big responsibility, and I don't have the right height to be to be over there. And but again, like I just played with what I had, and he just continued leading the conversation that we were having, and we all just have a great time.
Yeah. What is your biggest tip, Eric, for
Oh,
someone to have a great character interaction?
okay. So if you, this is something that I have said in the past, and I will just bring it again, just because it's very useful, especially if you have little scouts that are very shy. Uh, Bring something that can be signed. Uh, you can be as creative as bringing like a frame for a picture, a Lorcana card, a or bring something as simple as just your signature book. A In that way, also like the character will take it, and they will try to start a conversation related to that, and especially like if it's the first character who is signing the book, they will they will be honored for them to be the first one. um but like with that, just don't forget to bring your Sharpie or your pen with you, because the character attendant or the photo pass photographer may not have an extra one. So just make sure that you have one with you. And also, like if you have a lot of little scouts, just have your if you have a signature book, make sure that you have it open on the page that you want to for it to be signed, and just to make it easier for them, just like also like with one pen, it's enough. Just because if they try to handle like five different pens or sharpies, it's a little bit difficult.
I do think that's what Eric was mentioning is a good segue to um, my next tip, which is have a plan if you're going to do something a little bit complex. And if you've got a larger group, or even if it's just your family, you got a couple of kids and you know that they're going to want to have one photo with, each of the kids by themselves, and then you want a group photo together, and you want a photo with mom and dad and the whole crew. Have a plan and share that plan at the very beginning with the photopass photographer, if there's a photographer, or the character attendant if they're going to be using your phone to take the pictures, because that's going to help a lot with how that meet and greet is going to go. If you're going to want to have, you know 20 different photos, first off, try not to have 20 different photos if you can. But if you're going to have a lot of different combinations, it's going to be helpful for the character to know how to allocate time in that interaction to make sure that things don't get awkward. Because there's a long line of people waiting to meet characters, and you have a really long character interaction, and then on top of that you have 10 different permutations of photos. It's it's not ideal for anyone, and you might start to feel awkward that you're taking up too much time. But if you just share that at the outset, at the very beginning, it's going to help everything go a lot more smoothly. Everything's going to go a lot more efficiently, and you're still going to have magical moments with the character. They're just going to be able to structure it better to accommodate what you're hoping to get out of the experience. um, Eric, what are we hearing on Patreon? Any tips from Patreon about having good character interactions?
Some of our Patreon family are giving a suggestions about what to talk with specific characters. Christina, she mentions that Ariel likes to talk about collections. Me and my kids told her about how we collect the special coins for Spanish, that they are around Magic Kingdom, and it seems like that calls for them to have a good conversation. Steven says Cruella likes good fashion. She complimented my 7-year-old nephew on his outfit and styling, and it was the highlight of his day.
And I'll just throw out there, if you're ever meeting Donald Duck and you're at a loss for what to say, number one, remind everyone in vicinity that Donald is number one at whatever might be happening, right? If you got a photopass photographer there, you're doing a great job. I mean, which must be tough because you're here with the number one photographer in the world, Donald Duck. So that's a lot of pressure. Donald Duck is number one. It's always a good segue to a conversation.
Also, Christina mentioned that I purchased the all white ears at Hollywood Studios and have been slowly collecting signatures on those. They are great conversation starters in line. Also, if you happen to do that with ears, buttons, or water bottles, I just be careful because I have read that sometimes it wears off, like the signature. So just like whenever you're ready, you might want to seal them with something. Just to give you a heads up, just so your signature doesn't go away.
Jessica, what is your next tip for having a good character interaction?
I do just want to talk about the littles just a little bit and say there are not every child is ready to talk to every character. Don't force them. You can hold them if there's no you don't need to make the kids cry, and the characters don't like that either. So just know your kid and have that. I will say, I personally believe character dining is a great way to know if your kids are going to like characters. I think if you have small kids, before you invest in the line at a park, taking them to character dining and letting them meet their characters there, I think is probably the best thing you can do. And then how they'll react and you can prepare yourself. I find not all kids are ready for characters at the same age.
Yeah.
So you just need to be prepared for that.
Eric, do we have any other tips or suggestions from Patreon, or did you have something else that you wanted to share?
The last one that I would like to share is like just with PhotoPass. Even if you have it or not, I will always recommend you have your park ticket, Magic Band, whatever that you use to enter into the parks, like ready. A As Rob was saying early in the conversation, you never know what like the photo pass photographer or the box might have gotten, and you will be surprised like what you will see. Again, like it doesn't cost anything for you to be able to see your photos on the app, and like at the end, if you find something that if you find that you got something cute and you want to purchase just one photo of the whole package, I mean, you're going to be able to have them there.
Mhm.
You have the option rather than not having it. And the last thing is like if you ever happen to get photos from a different family, um, just especially with the boxes, you can always go to the front of the park. You will be able to ask for the photo pass photographers, cast members, if they can try to help you to find the photo. And usually, if you have the time, if you have the location, it should be pretty easy for you to find those photos as well.
Yeah, that does sometimes happen where things get mixed up. And this is an important thing to talk about if you're using PhotoPass, which you should be doing, even if you're not sure if you're going to buy it or not. You will typically uh, be scanning your park ticket or Magic Band or whatever it is at the end of your interaction. It's not usually at the beginning of your interaction, very rarely. Um, and they'll tell you, they'll say, "Oh, I need your Magic Band before we have the photos taken," but usually it's going to be at the end. Um, so have it handy, but know that you're probably not going to do the scanning until you're done with the interaction. And that's also a good point. I have many times not gotten the correct. Sometimes you get the family before you. Sometimes there was just a mix up somewhere, and that's a great tip to know that that doesn't mean your photos are lost. They're still there, and Disney can find them for you. If you don't want to take time out of your trip, you can also, you want to be prompt about this. You don't want to wait too long, but you can also call. There's a phone number that you can call, and they'll help you. They'll help to try to find your photos for you also over the phone. It's more difficult to do it that way, but you can do it, and then you're not eating up part time. My final tip for having great character interactions. This is one that it took me a while to figure this out, but when you're meeting fur characters like Mickey or Goofy, they will oftentimes be uh, almost like a game of charades to communicate with you, and uh, you might be a little bit confused. I know that I've had moments where I'm confused, and one thing that I've learned in many cases, the friend that's there with that character, the character attendant, will oftentimes be able to help. So if you look to that person who's there, they might be able to help decipher the charades that are going on. And usually, once you get going, once you get the first charade down, the rest kind of falls into place. But that's something that took me a while. Sometimes I'm a little slow. I'm like, I'm not really sure what Goofy's trying to tell me right now. But oftentimes, that character attendant will help translate for you. The last thing that I want to talk about with related to character meet and greets, I wanted us to each share. Jessica, why don't you start us off? What is your all-time favorite character meet and greet, and what made it so special?
So I know Nick and Judy is my favorite character. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Nick and Judy. But I will say my favorite character interaction of all time is Chip and Dale. I find Chip and Dale, we saw them outside in Epcot, and they just play off each other. They take your stuff and they run away. They have a little bit of fun. They're just so much joy in those brothers and their interactions with John and I. And I have a very vivid memory when we brought the kids when my kids were little, and we brought with my mom, and Chip and Dale were both talking to my mom and kind of flirting with her. You could tell, and they were giving my dad a hard time. I have this vivid memory of Chip and Dale just kind of being pranksters and doing that, and
Mhm.
I just love them. I just think they're to me, they're some of my favorite character interactions are Chip and Dale. So, although Judy is my favorite character interactions have been with Chip and Dale.
Yeah, they're great. They're really really fun. Eric, what is your favorite character interaction?
One of my favorite ones is actually watching you having fun with Jack and Sally. This was like basically like the first time that you were trying to get started to interact with face characters, and I remember that Jack just pointed at your microphone, and he was
Mhm.
like, "What is that?" And he just said something in between the lines of like it was a poison. If it
A
was a
poisonous
poison,
caterpillar.
yes.
Yeah. Well, that
Mm.
was Sally helped because I
Oh, it
was
was, yeah.
I was at a loss to say this is a and Sally said it looks like a poisonous caterpillar, and so now whenever I see Jack and Sally at Not So Scary, and I've got my so it's a we're talking about like a little lapel mic that's got like a furry thing to it's like a windscreen basically. And now whenever I meet Jack and Sally, I'm like, oh, I brought my poisonous caterpillar. And they're like, oh, delightful. But
And
so
also like,
but that was me. What your favorite
yeah.
character interaction that
So
you've had?
for me, my favorite character interactions have been with Daisy. Daisy has always been like over the top. And with Rob, she was not one of my favorite characters from the big ones. He was not one of my favorite characters. And then when I started coming to Disney and just being able to talk with her, being able to for her to do like her fancy poses, like she has been always like amazing. And
Yeah,
um, the last one that I would like to just bring is just I think when I met Koda and Kenai for the first time, it was just like a dream come true for me. Those characters mean a lot to me, um, and being able to be there with them, just hugging them, it just felt like a dream came true. So
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, we all have those that piece of our childhood that's still with us, and that's kind of
Mhm.
the magic of a Disney visit is that piece of your childhood is still there, and it comes to the surface in those moments. I think I have two favorites that immediately come to mind. The biggest one was I was in Hollywood Studios working on a Lightning Lane video, and I'm walking down Sunset Boulevard, and I'm so intent, like I'm focused on talking to the audience about using Lightning Lane, and when I'm doing that, when I'm walking and talking, the screen of the device is like this big,
Mhm.
and I'm also mainly focused on what's ahead of me, right? I don't want to run into anybody or, like, so I'm very rarely focused on the screen itself, which is tiny. Donald Duck was following me from basically way back at the Tower of Terror, almost like I mean, it was the equivalent of a city block. Donald Duck is following me and trying to get my attention. He's waving his arms. I didn't see any of this until I played back the video, but uh, I eventually he got so close to me that I accidentally I think kind of like elbowed him or something, and I was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, sir." And then I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's Donald Duck," and that was just a magical moment. That was we actually have that video up. I think we made a short out of it, so you can probably see that on the YouTube channel. Um, but my other favorite character interaction, I was saying before that sometimes I have trouble with the miming, getting the charades. I was with Frozone on New Year's Eve, and the best game of charades I've ever had with a character. Frozone, I said, Frozone, what are you doing? What are you doing for New Year's? You got any big plans? And he's like, oh yeah. And he did this, which he was like making this motion, and I was like, are you baking cookies? And he was like, he was so excited that I guessed baking cookies because it was, I mean, not the first thing you might think of. And then he did the universal motion that we all know as popping a champagne cork. And I was like, oh, of course you're going to have champagne. And he was like, no, 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 no. Hey, big no from Frozone. It was not champagne. I was like, oh, right. Sparkling grape juice. And he was like, bingo. I don't know. I still remember that interaction because I thought it was so funny that he was gonna bake cookies and and drink sparkling grape juice for New Year's Eve, and that I figured that out from a few hand gestures. So yeah, but Donald Duck is probably my all time favorite. Um, Eric, I know we've got a lot of people have shared their favorite character moments in the chat. Do you want to share a few of those with us now, and then we'll talk about some more of them in the after party?
Absolutely. The first one came from Christina. She said, most magical experience with a character I ever had was my first trip as an adult after my dad died. My dad loved Mickey. It was what we always did as kids with my dad. I might have cried a little on Mickey's shoulder, and it just felt like a hug from heaven, a moment I will never forget.
Yeah.
This comes from Bailey. She said, my favorite memory from our Disney cruise was randomly coming across Cinderella roaming in the lobby. She dropped to the floor, and my 18-month-old ran across the carpet and right into Cinderella's arm. It was precious.
Oh.
Mm.
And this was one of my favorite ones as well. This was from Jasmine. Since we were talking about Jack and Sally, she said, we also had our best interactions with Jack. He was very impressed with the unicorn on my kiddo's shirt. A fierce horse with a weapon on his forehead. LOL.
You can see that Jack would like unicorns. They come with their own weapon.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
It's really good. I'm going to remember that.
All right. Well, we're going to hear some more of those stories in our after party in just a little bit. But first, we have to move on to our next segment in the show, which is the question of the week. And I think we have a question of the week that is about characters. Jessica, what do we got?
Yes. So this is from Amy. She says, you've touched on this in some of your podcasts, but could you summarize tips for how to enjoy the food at various interactive restaurants, but not the character or audience involvement? Where do I sit, or what do I say to the host or waiter? I've tried to ask for characters to not stop by, but sometimes they still do. I find it particularly awkward as I am by myself. So I think that's an interesting take on it. And there's a character one, and then there's the places like Hoop-Dee-Doo Review or Prime Time. And what do we do if we're a little more introverted and we maybe don't want to have the character interactions or the interactions? I'll just start off by saying, and then I'll throw the rest of it to you. It is a little difficult for the characters, particularly sometimes. They have a routine and they just stop by. Even if you ask the host or your waiter, you may get a character because they just have a routine, and there might not have been time to communicate with that character that you're not interested in having a full-blown conversation. But if you just say, oh, thank you very much, I don't need a picture, oh, it's good to see you, they'll just keep going.
Yeah.
So it's so good to see you. I don't need a picture right now, but thank you. They'll just keep on going. So I think you can do that very politely. But as far as the others, what's your thoughts, Rob?
Well, you were the first thing you said, I think, is really gets to the heart of it. The different restaurants, the different types of experiences are all a little bit different. At Hoop-Dee-Doo, for example, which you mentioned, if you don't want to have the risk of getting pulled up on stage or having them come out and sing to you, when you buy your tickets, get the balcony seats, get the less expensive seats, because they don't do as much interacting up there, and you're less likely to have an interaction. At places like 50s Prime Time or at Whispering Canyon Cafe, where the servers will oftentimes kind of have fun with the tables and there's kind of a role play element. Those restaurants, they are very good about if you tell the host or hostess before you're seated that you're not comfortable with that, they're very good about getting that message across. But Jessica's right. With characters, it's a different thing because essentially, the characters are not in constant communication with the host station in the same way that servers are. And the characters actually rely more on what Disney calls a character attendant, but it's that friend who shows up with the characters and they're, dressed in a Disney cast member uniform. Um, that is usually the person who's going to be most able to communicate your wishes to the character. But even then, there's multiple of those friends of the characters sometimes, and the characters don't always get the message. So it's tough because their goal is to give everyone a moment, the characters, and it's sometimes hard to get the message to them that you didn't want to have that moment. But I think Jessica's right. Just politely, thanks, good to see you. I don't need a photo today, but thank you. I think that's the best way to do it. Well, we like to end each episode of the podcast with a segment that we call Happy Thoughts, because we just like to share some little positive tidbit to end the evening. Jessica, why don't you start us off? What is your happy thought this week?
So I think this is going to come out after D23.
Mhm.
So if it is, just bear with me. But my happy thought is because of D23, all of a sudden, Figment is getting the appropriate amount of respect. I have seen so many different social media news stories, everything saying predictions and wishes are for Figment. It's like every social media and every news organization is talking about how they hope D23 is going to announce a new Figment. And it's made me so happy because people that don't know what Figment is or who Figment is are all of a sudden like, I saw this thing, Figment on the news. It's bringing him back to the lexicon, and I love it. So more Figment news. It's been very excited. I also have told Rob multiple times, my FOMO is very, very high. I wish we had broken down and gotten the tickets when they came out, but we didn't. And I will remember and replay this episode in 2028, and I will get tickets because it seems like D23 is going to be amazing, but it's giving Figment a little boost right now, and I am enjoying that.
Awesome. Eric, what is your happy thought this week?
I am very excited that we're going to, well, in less than a week, in less than 2 weeks, we're going to be able to be in Anaheim, and I'm just excited to be able to see new characters, to be able to be part of D23. I just can't wait for us to be able to share like what it's coming. So yeah, I'm super excited about like the happening that's coming.
Yeah, I mean, when this airs, I think it'll be after D23. But we're going to be doing live coverage from the event each morning. And so if you have missed those episodes, they're already out by the time this comes out. And we'll have some live reports from everything that went down at D23. My happy thought is also related to that trip, but it's not about D23. I am so happy that we were able to get tickets to the Oogie Boogie Bash when we're out there. So Oogie Boogie Bash is their version of the Halloween party, their version of Mickey's Not So Scary that we have here at the Magic Kingdom, but theirs is in California Adventure. It's a little more, it's a little more grown up, not a lot more grown up. It's a little more grown up than Mickey's. But it is all about the characters. And I'm so excited because for the first time ever, we're going to be making a video on the main channel about Oogie Boogie Bash. If all goes well, assuming all goes to plan, that's the plan. And one of the things I love about Oogie Boogie Bash, and this relates to our episode today, is how they do characters there. It is very different than any of the things that we've talked about. At Oogie Boogie Bash, they have trick or treating stations. And so you wait in line to trick or treat. And in each of those lines, there's a character, a villain. Pretty much they're all villains, is there to interact with you while you are going through the line. And this is the best idea. I wish Disney would bring it to Not So Scary, because I love that you don't have to choose between which thing you want to do. Do I want to wait in line and do the trick or treating, or do I want to have a chance to meet this character? It all happens at the same time. And it also allows those characters to have really fun kind of, I mean, it ends up being almost like they're heckling you as you go through the line in some cases, and it's just really fun interaction. So I can't wait for that, and I can't wait to share with all of you the magic of Oogie Boogie Bash. But until then, we hope you all have a wonderful week and spending it with all of the wonderful characters that are in your life. And we hope you have a lot of happy thoughts. We'll see you again real soon.